How do you see others? And more importantly, how do you see yourself? In this first episode of Messages That Matter, I'm in conversation with David Gross. Now, David has both travelled and studied in many sacred spaces in Asia, and he's been on the path of self-discovery for over 40 years, supporting people who are courageously pursuing their own spiritual path and seeking insight, clarity, and guidance. And I've known David through a very serendipitous meeting in 2014. So we've shared many powerful conversations, and now we're sharing them with you. Hello, David. I'm so happy to welcome you to the Possibility Hub. Our soul connection started way back in 2014. And the conversations that we've had in those years have always been so inspiring, so out there, yet pertinent to our times. And I felt it was really the time to share some of those messages with a larger audience, because our conversations always weave in wonderful directions that are bang on for what's going on in our times. And I know just before we went on air, I hit the record button, you were sharing with me a conversation that you had yesterday. Do you want to kind of take that a little bit further?
Absolutely, Carol, and thank you for inviting me, because our times of connection are always so amazing. They are, and the places that we go and the conversations that we have and where we are directed to take our own awareness in this expansion of all that we are is so exciting. So yes, if I can, I'll just jump into kind of giving some context about the experience that I had with my friend. So I was speaking with her, and she was talking about her young son, who is 6 or 7 years old. And she said that at times he said to her, how come everybody looks so small? And then she was asking him some really good questions. And it kind of seemed like he was looking through a periscope or telescope, I guess, whatever the language would be there. And people seemed so small, so far away from where he was. And I had some very interesting insights to share with her about what that might mean.
So share with us now, because it's true. So many people are going through changes and not sure who they are. You know, just the other day, I had to fill in an online form, and it asked me what my title was. And again, the more titles you put, the more narrow it becomes. It's labels, you know, you're putting yourself into a box, really.
Exactly. Yeah. So although I'm using the telescope, periscope kind of image here for this child, the way that I see his experience is like this. He is seeing other people from his higher dimensional self, potentially, and therefore, with his eyes and from his experience of being only 6 or 7 years old, not really having a lot of context in stories around what that might mean, he says, oh, you guys seem so far away. But to me, it's not about him seeing them far away. And what I said to his mom was, I don't think he's quite aware yet of where he is. That's how I kind of framed it, because he's seeing things from a higher perspective. Right? So he doesn't have the context. He doesn't have necessarily even the language yet, perhaps, to put into words what his experience means to him. All he can do is shine light from the outside on here's what it looks like, in the absence of actually being able to assign some sort of meaning to it, and not just the cursory meaning, because she shared with me that she had shared this with her mom. And her mom was freaking out, thinking, oh, this child's got a brain problem here, right? There's something wrong with this child. My friend is well aware. She's quite aligned with her spiritual connection. So she knows it's not that. And so it's interesting to realize, in the perspective of this child sharing with his mom and with his grandmother what he's seeing. Here we go. His grandmother assigned a certain meaning and saw his experience through her eyes. His mom saw it through her eyes. His mom saw the experience from an expanded perspective. His grandmother saw it from her limited. It sounds so harsh, and I don't mean to be, there's no judgment here. It's just that she saw it through the lens of her experience. And not having a broader lens to look through in the context of what that might be, she was limited by how she could interpret his experience.
So do you think that links in now with the fact that more people are becoming aware of our multidimensionality, that we're just not limited. We've lived so long in a time-space reality where we're on a planet, there's nobody else in the cosmos, there's nothing else in the cosmos, and this separation, this illusion of separation. And now with the veil becoming thinner or different energies coming in, people are becoming aware of the expansiveness of who they really are, and that the labels that we give ourselves, you know, whether it's this title, that title, a mother, sister, daughter, lover, friend, are limiting rather than expanding us.
Not only the titles, but how they define themselves. So, for example, someone who might say, well, I'm not that spiritual, or I'm not enough, even like that human nature of not feeling like you're good enough or not feeling worthy, that just pinches us off from all that we are.
So how can we help ourselves and others to really expand this perception of who we are, like that little boy who saw everybody as really small? So, you know, unless he was with, you know, smaller children.
Yes. No, he was with the adults, and he still saw them at the tiny end of the scale. Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you say small, because I'm also remembering, you know, during this last 2 years in lockdown, you know, I've literally haven't worn shoes such a long time.
Yeah.
I know when I have had a couple of sort of live one-on-one meetings, you know, face to face, and I put on sort of shoes or heels, I thought, wow, I'm tall.
Yes.
It does give you a kind of like, you know, different way to stand, to be. So even when we're seeing everyone from a different perspective, it does expand your own reality and perception.
It does. And if you caught me snickering a few moments ago when you said one word, which was leading to a phrase that you and I know, and we've known for the last 5, 6, 7 years, because it's been in conversation that we've used so many times, our perception of the perfection of our connection with all that is, right? So that's why I snickered, because, oh, there's that word. We're talking about perception here and that. I just want to step back one step back here and say, when you're asking the question about our own support and how we see ourselves and what that means right now in our experience, especially having come through a couple of years of seeing the world from a whole different perspective, I think that in the context of this story about this young boy, it would serve us better to shift from the physical eyesight, what we see and how we see ourselves, because the question is, how do we see ourselves as being more, right? From the multiverse, multidimensional perspective here. This is where to me anyway, there is value in shifting the definition of seeing, or the word of seeing, to sensing. Because when we can sense that we are more, we don't have to see it yet. Many will not be able to see something yet, see the evidence of the expansion of who we are, golf ball size awareness conversation, right? That we've had before as well. But if we connect with sensing that there's more, sensing that we are becoming more, sensing that there is opportunity for us, sensing that we are, words that I use a lot in my work, we are stepping out of the shadows of who we've been and stepping more fully into the light of who we are, right? Which is obviously evolving. So in the sensing of the experience, to me, if I approach this exercise or the concept of what does it mean to sense that I'm becoming more, or sense that I am more, to me, anyway, just in my mind, it's an easier concept to grasp, because I'm not expecting to have to see something or have the visual evidence of something. I'm just sensing it. So in the being able to sense the expansion of who we are, whether you take it into fifth dimension or higher, is really immaterial. It's the sensing of the expansion of who we are, pardon me. And then in that sensing of the expansion of who we are, in connection with all that is, that's where we start weaving in the concept of our perception of the perfection of our connection with all that is. So they're intertwined.
And of course, with a child, their filters are not set the way that adults are. And I like the way you say sense rather than just see, because our sense of sight is limited. You know, you see what you expect to see. And we've all had that experience where you've gone, oh, and then it kind of like goes into focus of what you expect to see. And having done a course which is blindfolded and learning to see without your eyes, which of course,
yes,
children can learn that instantly in one session in less than an hour with mindfolds on. They're seeing colors, they're reading letters and numbers.
yes.
Adults, it takes a little bit longer because we're hardwired. So in some ways, this unusual time in our history, in our life that's happened, is either making us more cling on to the filters that we've been told and taught, or giving us an opportunity to break down those structures.
Yes.
And be in a different space and place to sense the world differently rather than to see it. And you know, we've seen so many people, you've got these factions who see the world as a bad place now and what we're going through, whereas others choose to see it as an opportunity for really growth and expansion, which is what I choose as well.
Yeah. That is so true, because when you say the breaking down, to me, breaking down maybe the opposite of birthing into something which is more. When we talk about the sensing of where we are, then I have to go here, because it's the core of my work, is the alignment of the energy of how we feel about where we are and what we are stepping into. So anyone who is, if I can use the language here, kind of rooted or ground, no, I don't like grounded because that actually has a good meaning here, but rooted maybe better. Sometimes when I'm doing some work and I got ideas flowing to me, I pick the wrong word and I get whacked. It's like, no, pick a better word. So when some people are truly, when some people are rooted in the belief that certain changes or certain things are to be feared, or the fear of the unknown, for example, or the feeling unworthy of stepping into something like that, that sensing of self, which is feeling, I call it denser in energy, doesn't feel so good, is what pinches us off or holds us back from the expansion into the opportunity. So for example, when I was speaking to the mom of this little boy, I said to her, I'm so happy that you counseled him to embrace the experience and not be afraid of it, because if he listened to his grandmother who told him this is wrong, this is whatever, all that language that she might use based on her minimal focus of mindset, he would be pinching himself off from his own potential, his own opportunity to actually see more of the world, see more of himself. So by not listening to his grandmother so much, but by listening to the counsel of his wise mother, she is actually supporting him in the expansion of his awareness, which then, and I said to her, he doesn't have the answers right now, and maybe you don't have the answers right now, but this is a path, when you step onto this path, trusting. Your heart is leading you here for a reason. You're following, be it intuition, whatever you want to call it, you're following this path forward here into that which is expanding and evolving for you. When you can trust that, and you can teach your child to be in a place of trust of the experience without the fear, because fear, if he aligns with fear, he's going to call in obviously that which is to be feared. But when he aligns with the opportunity, he aligns with the excitement, he aligns with the discovery. When he's aligned in that way, imagine how he's going to feel, and then imagine what's going to show up.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of looking at children and seeing their opportunities for growth. Now, I'm going to throw this out there because this image keeps coming to me. As you said, you know, this child is seeing everything from a distance, and everybody is small. So he's seeing from a different perspective. And the image that comes to mind is, as you said, that is a kaleidoscope. You know, when you're looking down a kaleidoscope, as you look down, you see all these colors and shapes. And then as you move the kaleidoscope, it changes, it evolves. And really, that's the time and space that we're in, that if we see from a different perspective, if we literally expand ourselves, we can turn the kaleidoscope and see the different shapes, the different opportunities, as you said, rather than seeing, you know, that is as closure. It's an expansion that leads to opportunities.
It's not a pinching off, yes. And to me, just to kind of one interim step there that's very important to recognize or to acknowledge is the allowing of the self to be in the energy of that experience. So if you're in the energy of allowing it to, or looking forward to it, kind of being excited about it, not knowing what's going to come necessarily down the pipe, as it were, but just being in the energy of the allowing of the experience without the energy that feels denser, be it fear of the unknown or anything that holds you back, then we actually open ourselves up to sensing. And perhaps what it means is like every step, we have the opportunity to sense, okay, how does this feel? Every step, how does this feel? How does this feel? And understanding that not only in reflection, how does this feel? Because then, oh, this opens up a whole different conversation. There's going to be part two, maybe. Well, here's the other part that opens up here. If we are sensing every step along this journey, so we're taking a moment to sense, how does this feel? How does it sit with me? Okay, that's pretty good. Next one, how does this feel? When we are taking those steps on that evolutionary path of our consciousness expanding here, we have to be hyper aware of what old stories, what echoes of what other people believed are we holding on to? Because if it's not truly in alignment with the unfolding of where we're moving into, then we're playing somebody else's tune here. We're playing their old fear of or limiting beliefs that are not our own. So we are offered, how does this feel? How do I sense here? And the moment that we feel a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of kind of nervousness or angst or anxiety taking a step forward, to me, that is the moment to expand our awareness. Okay, what's going on here? What do I have to acknowledge? Am I thinking? Am I feeling? Am I projecting? Am I reflecting beliefs, expectations maybe, that are not my own, but they're ones that I've heard so often that they've just kind of become the old paradigm that I have to leave behind?
Beautiful, because most people, when in this time of uncertainty and it's like, what next, we have a need to know before we go. And so it feels uncomfortable, not knowing, what am I going to do next? What's the next job? What's the next
uncomfortable, unsafe? Yes.
Unsafe. And yet what you're saying is it's actually an opportunity for an expansion rather than, again, putting yourself into a label or a box, saying there's something new coming in and to be excited and of the expansion and the not knowing.
Yes, and just to add a facet of perspective to that as well, when we are stepping into something which is unknown, and this becomes, I'm going to kind of use the language that's coming through my head right now. This becomes a little bit of our test of our faith. And I'm not talking religion here at all, but it's the faith in ourselves, the faith in our connection. So the test, which is a test of the reflection of the perfection of our connection with all that is to what degree do we to what degree do we trust ourselves to take this next step? And actually, I got a mini story that I can tell about that. It's freaking awesome. So I can share a story with you if you want.
Go.
Is it okay? Because I'm kind of in the flow. So okay. So years ago, I had a friend come to see me, and you know the friend that I'm speaking of. We've been in the same car together, the three of us, when you were visiting Canada many years ago. And my friend was voicing the frustration of, I'll put it into the context, I'll make it visual for you here. So it felt like he was in a fishing boat and he's casting the line into the water. He wants to catch the big fish. He wants to catch the big fish, whatever that means. And however that, in the context of your life, whatever catching the big fish means for you, be it success in business, success in relationships, success in family, success in whatever way. So he was in this little rowboat, casting this line, looking for the big fish. And he said, oh, I'm pulling out his minnows. And I thought, I can tell you why. So I kind of tapped in there and said, okay, here's why. So here's the story that came to me to share with him. Imagine, for anybody who's familiar with fishing, it doesn't matter if it's in a stream or a river or the deep ocean here, anybody who's familiar with fishing knows that there's a rod and knows that there's a fishing line, and there's going to be a hook at the bottom of the line that goes through the rod and then down into the water. So we said to him, it's kind of like you're using a 5-pound, I'll use pound rather than metric here, a 5-pound test fishing line, but you want to catch a big fish. But if the big fish is 20 pounds or 100 pounds or more, there's no way that big fish is actually going to be, you're not going to be able to get that fish into the boat, meaning you're not going to be able to materialize or manifest that big fish dream, because you're working with 5-pound test line. You're only going to catch minnows that are not going to break that line. But here's the thing. If you imagine sitting somebody, male or female, doesn't matter, sitting in a fishing boat with a fishing rod over the edge and the line kind of down into the water, make it this way, so the line down into the water. That fishing line, 5-pound test line, for example, is not going to catch a big fish. Even if the fish is only 20 or 30 pounds, it's going to snap that line. So let's say you put a heavier test, like a 10-pound test line or 20-pound test line, for example, on the fishing rod. if you've got a 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100-pound test line coming out of that fishing rod, you can catch the bigger fish. But the line, the 5-pound test, 10-pound test, 20-pound test or more, is actually a test of how much do you really believe that this is going to be yours, that you're going to get it in the boat. It's a test. It's not a test of faith, although faith and belief, we're getting into languaging here and semantics here, but it's a test of how much do you really believe and trust that that big fish that you're searching for there is yours to catch, right? Yours to get in the boat. So if you're going for the big fish with a 5-pound test line, no wonder you're only getting minnows in the boat, because you only have a 5-pound test line, which is the perfection of your connection to all that is. And backtrack, your perception of the perfection of your connection to all that is. So when you live in total trust, in the fullness of the trust of who you are and all that you're connected with, not to, but with, it's a with, that's a whole different story. You and I will talk about that one later with the bathtub image here, but what that means, it's a test of your perception of the perfection of your connection with all that is. And when you have such a firm hold on that level of trust, so that you can trust in that which seems intangible. You can trust in that which there's no evidence of a manifestation right now, but you can trust in that. Trust in me when I say my life has expanded so miraculously, and everything that comes to me, and it's almost now on an hourly basis, sometimes not just a daily or weekly basis, what is showing up is so incredible because I'm living aligned with a level of trust, knowing the perfection of my connection with all that is. And therefore, I don't have to go fishing for the big fish. I don't have to cast anything out there, cast any dreams out there, cast any desires out there, I want that to happen. There's no casting that needs to go on necessarily, because the big fish are all coming to me. It's pretty cool because I'm aligned with the level of trust, knowing the perfection of my connection with all that is.
And of course, as electromagnetic beings, you're magnetizing everything to you. So what a beautiful place to finish our conversation today and remind everybody of the perfection of their connection to all that is, and the expansion and accretion of more of who you truly are allows you to magnetize that to you as you have that belief of who you truly are, the magnificence, the brilliance of yourself. So thank you so much, David. And I will speak to you again very soon. Thank you.
Can't wait. Thank you.